So good morning everybody, and welcome to this webinar that's focusing on empathy and how you can apply a really easy tactic to become more aware of your customers' needs and desires. My name's Chris Elliott and I'm a client manager at TLF Research. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to type the questions in at any time, and at the end of the webinar I'll endeavour to answer those questions. What I want to do just at the beginning though is get the shameless self-publicity out of the way. At TLF Research, we work with a whole load of clients to improve their profitability through the delivery of highly actionable customer satisfaction research. And the tactics that we employ range from big, large, strategic relationship research that focuses on the perception that a customer has with an organization made from their experiences over a period of time. We also do highly event-driven research, tactical research that focuses on customers' experiences at a specific touch point. And we also increasingly do highly qualitative, design-driven work that takes the research and engages organizations' efforts in changing the culture of the organization into one of more customer centricity. So, empathy. In trying to understand what empathy is, I always think a dictionary definition is not a bad place to start. But for me, the key words that are contained within the definition say everything. Understanding, awareness, sensitivity, and experiencing. Now let's apply this to a more business-orientated definition. Business empathy is about having a deep knowledge of customers' wants, desires and needs, and then doing what's appropriate to make sure that they are supported by your culture. Now again, the key words are everything: knowledge, needs, supported. Now there's lots of examples where empathy works and also where a lack of empathy can be potentially destructive for an organization. And a really good example of where both are occurring is actually found in the current sort of news, which is within the low-cost airline Ryanair. Starting in 1985, Ryanair has grown from flying just 5,000 people per year from Ireland to London Gatwick to now flying over 110 million customers to over 30 countries. On the face of it, the statistics suggest that it is a really good business model for Ryanair, and it's hugely successful. And despite this reputation for being a low-cost, no-frills airline, Ryanair also has an unenviable reputation for being unfriendly and having a lack of empathy with its customers. So in 2013, the company, following a largely underwhelming set of results and buckling to the pressure from shareholders, they created the Always Getting Better program. This program, based on having a greater understanding of customers' needs and wants, generally tried to make things easier for its customers. And it definitely had an impact. There was a definite success that came from this. Came to the point where its infamous chief executive, Michael O'Leary, said, "If I'd known being nice to customers was going to work so well, I would have started this many years ago." What makes Ryanair such a pertinent example today, of course, comes from the recent publicity surrounding the cancellation of flights, leaving thousands of customers having to change plans for trips abroad and being completely in the dark about their next steps and their rights and what they have to do. So despite all the work that's been done with the Always Getting Better program, once again, Ryanair is accused of having no understanding, of not being sensitive to the needs of their customers. Now observers, indeed I myself, are keen to see that the impact this latest scandal will have on Ryanair, because I believe in the same way that satisfaction leads to loyalty and organizational success, as you can see with the service profit chain, I also firmly believe that having empathy also leads to loyalty, and arguably a lack of empathy will also lead to disloyalty. So how do we build this empathy? Well, a common fault that organizations make when they're trying to become more empathetic is actually starting from a position that they already think they know what the customer thinks and likes and needs. That they have some predisposed intuition that informs them as to what their customers' needs are. I find this manifested more often than not with price. Price is king. If the price is right, to coin the phrase, then our customers will be happy. They're classic observations from organizations that think they know what makes their customers tick. But I think at best this attitude's lazy, and at worst is arguably arrogant. To gain empathy with a customer, we need to not just think we know how we understand our customers, we actually need to be the customer. We need to understand, we need to be aware, and we need to be sensitive as to what makes our customers tick. So what do you think? Do you think like a customer? Does your organization know what it feels like to be a customer? So how do we get this? How do we achieve a greater empathy? Well, achieving greater empathy with our customers needs more than just one tool. There's no magic cure. There's no silver bullet to achieving this. It's arguably more of a mindset, something that's embedded in the culture of the organization. But what I want to show you is a really simple tool that I use an awful lot with my clients to give them a really good feel for how they understand what makes their customers tick. It's something that we call a customer empathy survey, or often I refer to it as a mirror survey, and I'm going to show you what this is now. First and foremost, the basic principle behind it. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that all of you joining me here today for this webinar have excellent customer satisfaction surveys in place. And if not, well, why not? And maybe if you don't, we should have a conversation at a later date, because it's really not that hard to do. Okay, so we've got a great customer survey in place, and we are, amongst many other things, asking customers how satisfied they are with the delivery of key requirements, and we're asking them how important those needs are to them. Well, the basic aim of the mirror survey is simple. The survey simply asks employees to give a score for how satisfied they think their customers are with the requirements, and then ask employees to rate how important those requirements are to their customers. Now, the results can be really interesting, and I've got a couple of deliverables I want to show you now. The first chart shows the difference between the internal perception of what customers view as most important and the actual ratings that customers give themselves. My experience tells me that often employees underplay the importance of most requirements, which is what you can see on the bar on the right hand side. But what they most often do is they underplay the impact that they themselves have on their customers. I think this is really important because I really believe that what employees say and do fundamentally shapes how customers feel about the organization overall, and that then ultimately informs their future behavior as customers. Now let's have a look at the perceptions when it comes to satisfaction. So on this slide we have the scores that employees have given for how satisfied they think customers are, and the difference between their scores and the customer scores. There's two really interesting things that happen from my experience. Firstly, employees often view process-driven requirements, in this example I'm citing repairs, as being a key driver of dissatisfaction in customers. This is often amplified further if actually the employee has no direct involvement in that particular touch point. In other words, the noise surrounding the process is influencing rather than the actual experience itself. The second thing that often happens is that actually employees score requirements that are related to people, in other words themselves, to be much better than arguably reality. But employees, unless overly pessimistic, aren't really going to give themselves low scores, are they? Now, these two slides in themselves can be, if communicated and applied in the right way, very powerful in driving employees to have a greater understanding, a greater awareness and sensitivity in their customers. Now, empathy surveys are typically quantitative in nature, but it'd be wrong to define them as a measurement. They're a tool to drive empathy, and we should not ignore the power that qualitative feedback that we can generate from this tactic of deploying a mirror survey. A question I like to add in these surveys is to ask employees to indicate where they believe the organization can and should change. And the comments that are gained from this question alone will assist in a greater drive towards becoming an empathetic organization. So, empathy. It's all about understanding, it's about awareness, it's about being sensitive and experiencing what your customers experience. There's no magic formula, there's no silver bullet, but it's really important. And having empathy, a true empathy, not an empathy built on sound bites and slogans with your customers, but a true empathy where you understand what makes your customers tick, will make a huge difference to the business in the short, medium, and long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. One question. What is the best data collection method for a mirror survey?
Okay, so a really good question there. So typically, as I often say to all people that I talk about in terms of data collection, there are two methods to do data collection. Self-completed survey or a driven telephone or depth face-to-face interview. The beauty of the people that we're wanting to use this mirror survey with, the empathy survey, is that they are employees, they are already a captive audience. So a really effective and efficient way of doing it would be by a web-based survey, just as a simple email link to employees, and it's done, and it's a really simple and easy way of doing it. So I would always recommend the best way is to use a web-driven piece of survey.